first day of early voting. Now this year, I apologize for being on Valentine's Day, but that's just the way it broke. And so we'll have to suffer through that. But it is a pleasure to be doing this here on the first day of early voting. Early voting, of course, goes through Friday of next week, and then the election on March 1st. And, we have a lot of candidates, as we said, a lot of candidates across the state that you can vote for. Going to be a lot of names on the ballot. Not a lot of them in contested races here in the local area, where we have tonight the candidates for county attorney, for county commissioner, and the two candidates for state representative for District 53 as well. The forum tonight is being broadcast live on 95.3 KNEL FM, online at KNELradio.com. It's also, we're creating a podcast from the forum tonight, be available on our website at KNELradio.com. You can download it or you can listen to it. Also, it'll be on Facebook Live tonight as well. And yours is same thing?
We're live.
Okay. Also through the Brady Standard Herald with that as well. So we're pleased to have everybody here. The candidates are here. I think maybe one exception, but unless he snuck in, I don't know it. But we'll start. The procedure is going to be that we'll start with the candidates for state representative for District 53, Andrew Murr and Wesley Verdell, and they'll have an opportunity to speak, tell you who they are, why they're running, and why they think they deserve your vote. After both candidates have spoken, then we'll take some questions and written questions, and there's some cards over here where you can write down your questions and get them to me, and I'll sort through them, make sure we eliminate duplication, that sort of stuff. Make it simplify. I'll ask the questions and we'll go from there. We'll follow the same procedure with the county attorney candidates, and then for the county commissioner candidates as well. Each person gets a chance to speak, and then we'll ask questions. The speaking order is based on their order on the ballot, and so that's where we'll start this evening. First off, we'll start with candidates for District 53. District 53 is new for McCulloch County. McCulloch County just moved into District 53 this year as a result of redistricting. And it's a big district, but it now includes counties like Mason and Menard and Kimball, which many people think is a good thing. We'll start first this evening. Will be State Representative Andrew Murr, the incumbent in that position. He's first on the ballot, and he will be the first to speak this evening. Mr. Murr.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? I always get to be the first guinea pig to make sure that you can see and hear me correctly. So let me take a moment to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Andy Murr, and I currently serve as the state representative for House District 53, which totals 12 counties. And so let me give you a little background about it since we have the opportunity to do that. I grew up on a working ranch outside of Junction where we raised sheep, cattle, and goats. And coming from a ranching family, a long line of folks in heritage, grew up working the land and developed an appreciation for agriculture, had the chance to attend school in Junction. And after graduating, I went to Texas A&M to pursue a degree teaching high school ag science. And so I actually did my student teaching right down the road in Mason, Texas. Following that, I had the opportunity to go to law school, and so I have a law degree from Texas Tech. After a few years, I returned to Junction to hang a shingle and practice law and live and work on the family ranch where I run cows. And so it's a great opportunity to be able to do that. During that period of time, I also had the chance to serve half a decade as our county judge in Kimball County before ultimately being asked to step into this role. And so I've spent the last 8 years serving as state representative. Now that's for a 12 county area. And so there's a lot of space in 12 counties, but upon redistricting recently, we learned that we still had to grow and add more folks. And so while we still have more livestock than people, it now includes 16 counties and includes McCulloch and counties that you're familiar with, such as Kimball, Mason, Menard, down to Kerrville and Hondo, and all the way out to Fort Stockton and everything in between. The size area of our House district is comparable to that of the state of West Virginia. And so you can imagine there's lots of opportunity to travel, meet folks, and work diligently. As you're aware, with the state legislature, we only meet every odd year for 5 months. The rest of the time, you're supposed to be a citizen. You're supposed to be back in your communities and working hard, and also preparing for the next session. And so one of the things that I know we're going to have a chance to talk about lots of important topics. I'll tell you what I do focus on, is I focus on making sure that I have strong relationships with our community leaders and our local elected officials. And for McCulloch County, having roots as a county official myself, we fall in the same Council of Governments through Concho Valley, and we had the opportunity, we also overlap in the same judicial districts. And as a practicing attorney, more than once I've been to your courthouse. I've actually had jury trials in your courthouse here, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So when you talk about communities of interest, we all align and we fall together. A couple of topics that are very important to me. First and foremost, before I go any further, I want to thank my family for the opportunity to serve. You know, with my wife and my children and the support that I have from all of our family members, couldn't do it without them. Thank God every day, both for the opportunity to be able to serve and to have those special people in my life. Topics that we're going to talk about. I just want to make sure that you understand what is important. For me, right now, is and remains number one priority, border security. You know, Junction is right down the road from Del Rio, and it is not a week that goes by for months now that I don't talk to a neighbor, an elected official, whether they're from Sonora or Rock Springs or anywhere in between, about the impact that we've experienced at our border. Now, the legislature has worked hard to step in because the federal government has not done its complete job. And that's been challenging. We have seen the state legislature spend an unprecedented almost $3 billion on personnel, technology, and assets to supplement what we need at the border. Now, as you well know, that's never completely enough when the federal government maintains a welcome mat that continues to invite folks out. And so there's always more to be done in working with our local elected officials, including law enforcement, health officials, and others about the impacts that we experience on a daily basis. Another thing that I'm very zealous about is property taxes. Nearly everyone in this room personally either pays property taxes or you have somebody in your family that does that. And for session after session now, I have advocated a specific plan to permanently abolish a large portion of our property taxes. If you look at a pie chart of what you pay, school district taxes, county, city, special groundwater districts, etc., a majority across the state of Texas goes to public education. Well, the state of Texas is obligated to pay for that, and that is very important. That is enshrined in our Texas Constitution. So I think we owe it as policymakers to all of you to sit down and come out with a better way to fund public education without cutting what we spend on students and teachers. So that is very important. Finally, real quick, and I'll highlight it because I know we'll have a chance to talk about important topics. You know, I look at and I stand for representing our rural Texas values. When you go and you look at a map of the state of Texas, there are 150 members in the Texas House. Approximately 31 of those folks are considered to be rural. The rest of them all come from where the people are, suburban and urban areas. And when you really get down to it, whenever they get really great ideas in Houston or Dallas or somewhere in a high growth area, they don't always understand how it impacts us in the Hill Country. And so we have to work diligently to make sure that there is a voice in Austin that represents those rural values, that worries about agriculture, that worries about what impacts somebody else might have a great idea about that is detrimental to us. Now, we'll have a chance to talk more today about questions. In my time in serving in the legislature, I'm very proud of my record. Any way you slice it, I am one of the top 25 most conservative House members out of 150 members. And I think that's very important. I stand by my record, and that's why I am endorsed by groups like NRA, the Texas Farm Bureau, Texas Cattle Raisers, numerous law enforcement organizations, numerous life organizations, and several business organizations, because they look at that and they look at our small town values and they know that those are very important. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to visit with you today. If we miss a question or we don't get a chance to talk about something, always feel free to reach out and touch base. But at the end of the day, thank you much for being here. God bless Texas.
Thank you very much. The candidate also for State Representative District 53, Wesley Verdell.
Thank y'all. I bet y'all didn't expect to see me in a sport coat. Most of y'all see me covered in grease most of the time. So most of y'all know me, but if you don't, I'll tell you about me. My name is Wes Friedel. That's my wonderful wife, Sarah, back there. I've been married for 19 years, and we have 3 boys. My parents are somewhere over here. Where are they at? There they are, Terry and Terry. And I was born into a working class family, and they taught me the importance of labor, and I don't regret that at all. I'm thankful for that. So when we go back to why am I in this race, I've been going to the Capitol for about 10 years, maybe 12 years now, working on gun bills. And what we saw every time we went there was those guys there aren't fighting for us. We're a Republican majority. We've had a Republican majority for 20 years. For 20 years, you think it wouldn't be hard to pass Republican legislation, right? 20 years, nothing, almost nothing. Every now and then they give us a little token bill because whenever they know that maybe they're up for re-election and they might lose their race, then they do something. They'll throw something out there for us and say, look, most conservative session ever. It's not the most conservative session that we could have. That's the problem. So, excuse me. So anyways, if you don't mind, I brought the propositions up here. This is a good one to talk about. These are put by the Republican Party of Texas. These are things that have been on the ballot a couple of times, I believe. Republican Party of Texas. Me, I served as a state delegate and a national delegate. And what we do is we put together what's important to the Republican Party of Texas. It's on the ballot. So these don't carry the weight of law, in case y'all didn't know that. It's basically to show the legislators what we value and what we expect out of the legislators. So I'll start with the first one, which is the securing the border. So I had a friend of mine from Mason call me, and he was stationed down there on his mission, and he was told 3 times he was on the mental health group. It's not his main job, but that's his specialty in the real world. And he's been told 3 times, stand down, quit counseling troops. We've had, 5 suicides now and a 6th attempt. He keeps getting told by his lieutenant colonel, you need to tell your troops to call the hotline. He says the hotline is inadequate. When we have people bragging about how great we are sending money to the border and all that, we have troops there right now in the National Guard. This is not federal, we're talking about state right now. Those guys are given rifles, they're not given ammunition. They're put on hilltops where they can be silhouetted and they can be shot from the other side. They're not given the proper winter gear. They're not getting paid on time. One of the troops that I was talking about, a friend, one of his troops, his wife had a stillbirth and he was not allowed to leave. She lives in the state too. He was not allowed to leave to go deal with that. So as far as the border issue goes, I don't think that we're doing enough. I think that we're supposed to have a defensive border, and some people are wanting to take this out of context, but we're supposed to have a defensive border, not a soft border. And I said, if you shoot a couple of trespassers, I bet they get the attention real quick, and we'll quit doing that. And that's tongue in cheek, but seriously, if you have middle-aged males coming over here and they're moving drugs, sex trafficking, we're supposed to be defending that border, right? We're not supposed to let them come over. We're not supposed to give them towels, clothing, housing, tickets, money, and send them out into our country. So when we talk about that, I think we have a complete failure so far. Now, we know the coward in office named Joe Biden is not doing anything, but us as a state should be doing it also. Sorry, dry mouth. Y'all probably don't want to know that about me. Okay, number 2, Texas should eliminate all property taxes within 10 years. The reality is that they'll tell you that every election, 10 years, 10-year plan, right? It should be done now. It shouldn't be 10 years because I guarantee 10 years from now, they know they're probably not going to be in office, or they're going to hope that you forget and they're going to come up with a new 10-year plan. That should be done this next legislative session where we actually have real reform on our property taxes. I think that property tax is immoral. For those of y'all that are living on fixed income, property taxes keep going up, even though politicians tell you that they're bringing them down. Your income isn't going up, but your expenses are. So now you're having to cut from your lifestyle to figure out how to get by, which is wrong. We have to eliminate property taxes, but we have to do it in a way that makes sure that the counties have control over their counties and the money in the counties stays in the counties. Also, you can tell I'm not a politician. I'm not a smooth talker, so bear with me on that. Okay, number 3, Texans should not lose their jobs, nor should students be penalized declining the COVID-19 vaccine. My opponent, whenever COVID happened, was a state legislator. Abbott had mandated masks. He shut down businesses. He closed churches. My opponent had been campaigning for years on how conservative he is, but when the fight showed up at his door, it was dead silence. Almost every state representative was dead silent. They let Greg Abbott rule as a dictator. Greg Abbott threw a hair salon stylist in jail because she refused to close her business when her next door business where she was at was a dog groomer, and she got to stay open because that was considered essential, and she was considered non-essential. How many of y'all were told that you were non-essential? Good, okay, that means we're all working class. So. But across the state, people were told they're non-essential and that they had to stay home. Only 4 legislators out of the entire 181 legislators actually stood up for us and said that Governor Abbott should call a special session and let the legislators do their job instead of ruling like a dictator. We go to number 4. Texas students should teach basic knowledge of American exceptionalism, reject critical race theory. We knew this before this last session, right? That CRT was there. You would think that something would be done about it. It hasn't been done. And what every politician is going to tell you, next session, we're going to get this done. If y'all are like me, I am tired of watching people tell us next time we're going to do it. They don't do it. As I'm just a working class guy who is tired of people that get up there and campaign about how they're going to get things done, and then they hope that you forget about it and they don't do it. They work against you actually a lot of times behind the... Sorry, I'm over 40 now, so I have to have it a little further away from me. Oh, this is a good one. Proposition 6. The Republican-controlled Texas legislature should, in the practice of awarding committee chairmanships to Democrats. That was on House Rules 4. That was the committee or the House Rules. There was Amendment 3 and Amendment 5 proposed, and that was to make sure that only the majority party could chair committees. My opponent voted against that. My opponent voted to allow Democrats to chair committees. He'll have an opportunity to explain why he thinks that's a good idea, but I think that's a terrible idea. Those chairs, when they get appointed to those committees, can kill our legislative priorities. There's a lot of Republicans that will tell you, oh, we fought for it, but it died in committee. Knowing that you probably don't know, the Speaker of the House, the Republican, is the one that appointed those chairs. So if we look at over the last 170 years, we've had about 150 years of Democrat control. They allowed less than 10 Republicans to ever chair a committee in that 150-year period. This year alone, out of 36 committees, we had 12 Democrats chairing committees. We're not honoring a lifelong tradition. We're giving Democrats power, and we're letting them stop legislation that should be passing right now. Here's a good one. Proposition 8. Texans should ban chemical castration, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and genital mutilation surgery on all minor children. How many of y'all even knew that it was legal to do that to kids already? It shouldn't even be a question that this should be outlawed, right? We've had 2 sessions now where we've had the opportunity to ban transgender surgery on minors, to end chemical castrations, and it hasn't done. This is by a group of people that are Republican majority, and they tell you that they're fighting for you, but you won't see most of them lift a finger to get it passed out of committee. Stephanie Click is a Republican who chaired that committee, and she let it die. And I can tell you that there was an immense amount of people calling the Capitol, going to her office, and nothing was done. The Speaker of the House allowed that bill to sit there and die. And now you'll see, if you'll go back and look at Dave Phelan, Speaker of the House, he just posted the other day that next session we need to ban this, right? He knew it was there this session. All they're doing is they're playing kick the can down the road. When they tell you that they care about you, they don't care about you. They care about the people that give them large amounts of money. That's it. It's not about you. Can y'all see my frustration when I talk about this stuff? So it's incredibly frustrating. Then, I covered most of the propositions. I look forward to any questions y'all have. Hopefully y'all wrote some good ones down. Thank y'all for y'all's time. I appreciate it.
Well, as a matter of fact, we do have some questions. And I'll start with one basically for both candidates. And Wes, why don't you come back up and you can answer this one first. Without mentioning your opponent, why should I vote for you?
I will do what I say I'm going to do. It's time for common sense to get back in there. Nothing against lawyers. One of my best friends is a lawyer, but lawyers have a special way of making things overcomplicated. This shouldn't be complicated. Every bit of this should be easy. When I'm telling you that I'll represent you, I'm a working class guy who knows what every one of y'all have to go through. I will not go there, work against you. I will not become corrupt, and I will not turn a blind eye to constituents. When constituents call me, when they show up to the Capitol, I won't run to my office and hide. I will be there for you, and I promise I will listen to you, and I will try to find the best solutions. Now, when we talk about, we have a lot of elected leaders here right now who are older than me. They have a lot of wisdom that I have probably not attained up to this point. I hope to in the future. But I know that it's my job to listen to the people that have the wisdom, who are expertises in their field, not to think I know it all. And I promise I will not go there with the intent of just being a tyrant controlling things my way. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
So I believe the question was, why would a person want to vote for the candidate? So I bring to you both experience and practical know-how. So I am a product of our Texas Hill Country. I am proud of the fact that I grew up in the country, that I understand what it takes for a small county and a small county government to operate. And I pride myself on the fact that we listen to our local elected officials and our community leaders, and we work towards identifying needs in our community and providing for those needs. Case in point, Mason County. The courthouse was burned down by an arsonist. And I get to say that. They may not say that in court just yet, but it happened. Now, the person that's alleged to have done it had court the very next day. It was an attack on a branch of government, the judicial branch, because he didn't want to go to court. It burned down. It's costing $19 million to rebuild it. It was an egregious act. So I worked with members of the Texas House and the Texas Senate to get an unprecedented $6 million allocated directly to Mason County for the restoration of the courthouse, which is underway now. I give that to you as an example. The Texas Tech University Center in Junction, Texas, that campus has been there since it was with A&M, and Bear Bryant brought some boys over and they practiced football. At some point, it ended up being with Texas Tech. Consequently, the buildings have been ignored for a long time. There's opportunities there. There's research done in the Texas Hill Country. So when we started looking at how do you provide for that, well, now there's $8 million available for them to build replacement facilities as needed for research. It's on the river, and we're proud of Hill Country Rivers. When we talk about the impacts to TxDOT, work closely with our local elected leaders to identify TxDOT projects that you yourself care about and make those priority issues, both for the state and for the region. So at the end of the day, when we turn around, you can rest assured that you've seen direct impact to what's going on in your community. So when folks call, we work on that. Another case in point, we identify things that don't make front page news, and we work on those diligently. I'll give you a brief example. In Kerrville, I had a nurse call me up a couple of years ago, and he said, Andy, I have identified a problem that I think we have in our community, and I want to figure out a way to fix it. Now, he was the recipient of an organ donor, which means that somebody gave him life. And he said, the way the policies are written now, life insurance companies or health insurance companies can actually treat someone differently. They can dock you or deny you coverage solely based on the fact that you gave an organ and you're otherwise completely healthy. And he said that is going to discourage and does discourage folks from deciding to save someone else's life, whether it is a complete stranger or it's one of their closest family members. And so we turned around and said, well, what can we do? We researched it. We worked diligently with the House and the Senate, and we passed legislation to ensure that insurance companies cannot discriminate against organ donors solely for being an organ donor. Why? Because we want to encourage a policy of that. That was brought to me by a constituent in the community that said, I realize that I see we have a problem. What can we do to fix it? And I give that to you as an anecdotal scenario of the type of work ethic that my office and my staff and I work towards to represent our rural values. Agriculture, rural values mean a great deal to me, and I know they do to you as well. They're the lifeblood of the Hill Country, and that's why I take the opportunity to work hard to continue to serve you. I'm excited to serve you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll let you be first on the next question. And it's question is, will you support the current Texas state abortion law? That's the question. And there's a second part of it for you specifically, and that is, why did your right to life scores fall in 2015 and 2017 from the levels they were at then by the time you get to 2019?
Okay, we'll address, so different groups are out there and they all play a score game where they decide what your score is going to be. That's a score game. That's not record. They cherry pick votes and then they say, oh, that vote, that worked 20%. It's like school. Here's what I will tell you. This last session, we had one of the most important sessions for life that the state of Texas has ever seen. So consequently, we've seen the Heartbeat Act pass. You're all familiar with that. It says that the moment you can detect a heartbeat, you cannot have an abortion. That life must be preserved. It is now going through the courts, and it is model legislation that's being adopted by other states around the country. In addition to that, HB 1280, which passed this last cycle, we passed it in 2021, and you haven't read a lot about it yet. It says that abortion will be outlawed in the state of Texas 30 days after Roe v. Wade is overturned in part or in full. Or Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Casey versus Planned Parenthood. So when the United States Supreme Court takes action to change Roe v. Wade, we already have a trigger bill on file right now with the state. 30 days later, abortion will be outlawed in the state of Texas.
Again, the question is, will you support the current Texas state abortion law?
I will. It also doesn't go far enough. I'm an abolitionist, so abortion should be outlawed fully, not just once a heartbeat is detected. Now, I'm going to touch on Andy's score real quick. So Texas Right to Life in 2019 gave him a 60%, and in 2021 they gave him a 68%. What that has to do is not just on how he voted on certain issues, but bills that he was asked to support and he wouldn't support. That's how they come up with that score. There was House Rule Amendment number 19, and that amendment was to take up all bills dealing with abortion before naming any roads or bridges, and Andy voted yes for it, which is great. But then he walked across the House floor and changed on the House Journal. He put in there, I voted yes on this bill. I meant to vote no. I will support abortion bills. I will not go and change my vote either, for the record. When I make a vote, that's what counts. I will not talk out of both sides of my mouth, and that's what politicians do when they walk across the floor and change their vote in that House Journal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Wesley Vordell, and you touched on it in your comments, and that was a comment apparently recently where you referred to, or you've been quoted about in dealing with immigration, that we should just shoot them. And that's been published in the news. You want to elaborate on that? As I said, you touched on it already this evening.
All right, I like that. So in politics, people get misrepresented, misquoted quite a bit. I would encourage you to go back through the Kerrville Daily Time and read that article. They even mentioned that I said it tongue in cheek. And I am serious that we're supposed to have a defensive border. This soft border that we have is a detriment to our country and to our state. This is absolute insanity. And do I think that how many of y'all think if somebody's trespassing on your land that you have the right to shoot them? Most people in here. Somebody's trespassing illegally onto your country. You have a right to defend your border, right? Most other countries would kill you when you come across that border. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the other countries need to fear our laws. They have no fear of the consequences right now. Like I said, we have a coward that is the president of the United States right now. That guy is not standing up for us. We have to figure out another way where we actually stand up and protect our border, because otherwise we're going to lose our country. If you don't have a secure border, you don't have a sovereign country. Thank you.
Right.
And the final question for the two of you basically is for Mr. Murr. Have you served in the military?
No.
No. And for Mr. Vordell, what was your job in the Air Force?
So if some of y'all saw me growing up, y'all might not expect me to do this, but I did. I went to basic training 2 months after September 11th, and I had a guaranteed job I worked on intercontinental ballistic missiles. I'll give you a little background on that real quick. So those are missiles in the ground with nuclear warheads. If you remember Fat Man and Little Boy, those were 15 kiloton nuclear bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On our weapons, we had, I believe it was up to 200 kilotons per warhead. Our Peacekeeper missile could carry 10 of those. We had the ability to deliver serious, and we still have, the Peacekeepers are deactivated, we still have the Minuteman IIIs. Those have can carry 3 of those warheads at a time. I did that for a few years, then I went and served as a military training leader. And this actually applies to this job. So what I learned pretty quickly was you're either serving your leadership or you're serving your troops. If you are serving your leadership, you are doing a disservice to your troops. I'm not saying y'all are my troops or anything like that, but I'm here to serve y'all. I'm not here to serve the Speaker of the House or whoever else is at the state legislature that wants to control me. I will represent you, and I learned that from being in the military. Thank you.
That's the end of the questions for the candidates for State Representative District 53. Next, here on KNEL, and this is KNEL 95.3 FM in Brady. And glad to have you with us for our candidate forum tonight here on KNEL. Next up, the candidates for county attorney. We have 2 candidates, Bruce James and Greg Torres. And Greg, you're first on the ballot, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I was telling my wife, everybody hear me okay? I was telling my wife I'm going to have to add to the list. I've got weddings, funerals, trials, and now KNEL candidate forums. I'm going to come out full decked in a suit. So just wanted to add that in there. But I'll give you all a little bit of background because as I've been walking and knocking on doors, I've been getting the same gesture here and there, and that's the knee-high gesture. And what that tells me is that people remember me when I was just that tall. So let me just kind of give you a background. I grew up here in McCulloch County, born and raised, 6th generation McCulloch County native. My dad was a postmaster for 30 plus years in Rochelle. My mom taught at the school system, served at the school system for 30 plus years. I always tell people I had the best of both worlds growing up here. I got to live out in the country on FM 1121, early childhood and adolescence, and then I also lived that small town life and grew up out there on Stanton Street. So got the best of both worlds with that. And after that, I went to my dream school, which was Baylor University, graduated there with a bachelor's in political science and history in 3 years. And from then went on to Texas A&M. No whoops. All right. Guess no Aggies in the crowd tonight. That's okay. And graduated there with my Juris Doctorate. I spent the last 3 or 4 years in Fort Worth and got some great experience. I worked at a bankruptcy firm, which I don't recommend, for maybe 6 or 7 months. But I also worked at a civil firm. And then the last 2 to 3 years, I worked at a criminal defense firm. And in that firm, I got to travel all across the state of Texas, working on what we call highway interdiction cases. And when I mean all across the state, that's what I mean. I mean as north as Dalhart, west as Sierra Blanca. I went to East Texas in Tyler and all the way down to the coast. And we represented defendants that were caught in drug cases sometimes money laundering cases. And I practiced in over 67 counties in that time. And I've done, in my time as an attorney, I've done hundreds of thousands of criminal and civil cases. And when my wife got pregnant, nearly 2 years ago, we decided that it was time to move back home to a small town. She's from a small town in southern Idaho, and I'm from right here, of course. And I always tell everybody, there's really not much difference. I don't know who ever's been to Idaho, but it's a beautiful, underrated state. Only difference, different accents, more mountains. That's about it. Trucks are the same. Those hats are the same. The people are the same. There's some great people. And my wife always said, I know if I marry you, I'm going to stay in Texas, and I'll probably move to McCulloch County one day. She's been my wife for 8 years. I'm so glad she's here tonight, and she's been supporting me. We have a 20-month-year-old that I'm proud to say will be a 7th-generation McCulloch County native, and that's why I'm here. I owe a great debt to the people of this county, and that's why I'm running. Whether it's the volunteers with the Brady Youth Sports Foundation, my wonderful teachers from K through 12, my coaches, anybody that's ever helped me, my church, of course, anybody that's helped me grow up. I don't come from a rich family. I'm solidly middle class, but I also tell people I wasn't poor either. I've had people come up to me the last few months and say, man, I really like your rags to riches stories. And I always tell them, I appreciate it, but it ain't quite rags and it ain't quite riches. I'm a solidly middle class. When I was in high school, I lettered in football and basketball and baseball, and I always tell people when my mother was in high school, she didn't play 3 sports, she worked 3 jobs. When I was 19 years old, I was at a private university in Waco, Texas. When my dad was 19, he was in the jungles of Vietnam. It's because of them that I'm here today. It's because of them that I want to come back and raise my son the same way I was raised here. And I'm excited to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. James, Bruce James. Our second candidate.
Good evening and happy Valentine's Day. I especially want to thank the ladies in attendance who allowed their husbands to pretend this would be a romantic night out. I'm Bruce James and I am your county attorney. Let me say at the outset, I do not believe the serious business of representing your county is about where a lawyer was born. I believe it is where a lawyer has lived as an attorney. I believe it is about not what he learned in a classroom in high school, but what he learned in the courtroom. It is simply about legal experience. I learned early in my career that there are 2 items that you cannot buy, and that is maturity and experience. That is why to qualify for the Supreme Court of Texas, you must be at least 35 years of age and have practiced law for a minimum of 10 years. Maturity is measured by age. Experience is measured by years of practice. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm not a politician. I've been in this office since November 30th and want to tell you about what I have discovered is going on in the county. The decisive issue is who can provide the highest legal service to this county in representation in the 3 areas that my office is responsible for. The first area, of course, is as prosecutor for the state of Texas, prosecuting certain crimes we call misdemeanors. Secondly, is it's as an advocate for the civil trial and transactional matters. And third, it's in the administration of the office. Law school is important, to be sure. That is why I've noted I was a member of Phi Delta Phi International Legal Honor Society, whose membership was only open to the top 20% of the law class. After you pass the bar exam, the marathon of gaining experience begins. That's why I've also noted that I'm admitted to practice before the United States Supreme Court, the United States Courts of Appeals for the 5th and 11th Circuits, the United States District Courts for the Southern, Northern, and Western Districts of Texas. In 2021, the McCulloch County Commissioners Court solicited applications for the county attorney's office. Only I and my opponent applied. After in-person interviews with your county judge and all 4 commissioners, I was selected to be your county attorney. Please talk with them, the chief of police, your sheriff, and find out what kind of job I'm performing. Find out why I was chosen for this job. For those of you who don't know me, I was one of 4 children born to parents who were not college educated, but who worked to make sure all 4 of us were. I supplemented my college and law school budget by mowing lawns, by working for a swimming pool company, and serving tables at student housing, cleaning fraternity houses, and tutoring. I graduated from the University of Texas School of Law, which happens to be the highest ranked law school in our state. I was blessed to meet Suzanne Carruthers, a native of here in Brady, and we were married with 4 children, 2 daughters-in-law, 2 sons-in-law, and 8 grandchildren. When all 18 of us are together at the ranch, Suzanne calls us the Brady Bunch. I have decades of legal experience as a trial attorney. And when I say a trial attorney, I'm talking about someone who goes to court, picks a jury, spends time arguing to that jury, calls witnesses, cross-examines witnesses, calls rebuttal witnesses, argues the case, and waits for the jury to return a verdict. Those trials take normally 3 days. Some of mine have lasted as long as 3 months. I've represented numerous individuals, governmental entities, and companies, large and small, in matters at the state and federal levels. Although my opponent claims great experience in his legal career, starting back in 2016, I've been unable to find any matter that he's handled on appeal in either federal or state court. Why is it important for a county attorney to be admitted in the federal court system? County employees are subject to the United States Code Section 1983, which allows an individual the right to sue government employees and others acting under color of state law for civil rights violations. I have represented local governments, police officers, building inspectors, and municipal judges in those cases in the federal courts of this state and elsewhere. My opponent states that he's admitted to the United States District Courts for the Northern and Eastern Districts of Texas. McCulloch County is not situated in the Northern or Eastern District of Texas. It's in the Western District of Texas. I'm admitted to practice in the Western District of Texas. Apparently, my opponent currently is not able to represent our county in the Western District of Texas. I want to talk to you a moment about the criminal matters I'm handling for the county. I have prior experience as a prosecutor and prosecuting matters now in the county court. I do not believe my opponent's ever been a prosecutor. Upon taking office, I immediately began addressing the severe backlog of cases that I found in the office. We have set as many cases as we can for arraignment and guilty pleas as possible. Plea bargaining plays an important role in case management in almost every court. I have used my 40 hours of mediation training to be certified as a mediator to assist in this effort. Our county now faces serious drug problems. The legislature passes our criminal laws. The police, the sheriff, the DPS, Texas Rangers, and your district and county attorneys enforce them. The single most illegal used drug in our county, of course, comes as no surprise, is marijuana. Some people who use marijuana get addicted to it. Marijuana, in my opinion, is a gateway drug to other drugs and often leads to other crimes in order to obtain the money to buy those drugs. My wife's college roommate and best friend's son started on marijuana, left for college in Colorado, and moved on to heroin. He never even enrolled in college and was later found dead, alone, on a cold bench in San Antonio. In Colorado, a state that has legalized marijuana, the marijuana-related traffic deaths increased by 151% in 2018 alone. Until told otherwise by my legislature, and I don't think Andy would ever do this, I will continue to prosecute the marijuana laws on the books. About 60% of my criminal docket is drug-related and mainly marijuana possession. Amazingly, I have discovered about half of those include additional charges of theft, theft by check, criminal mischief, assault, or resisting arrest. I wondered where my opponent stood on marijuana issue. Here is his LawLink article about the time he spent in Fort Worth working for a lawyer up there. In it, he proclaims that he is on the legal committee of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. That lawyer's name was David Sloan, who claims he is aggressively fighting Texas's unjust prohibition on cannabis, one client at a time. NORML, which stands for the National Organization, supports the removal of all criminal penalties for the private possession and use of marijuana, including the cultivation for personal use and the casual, nonprofit transfers of small amounts. My opponents returned to Brady with what I consider a disturbing liberal background. Even more disturbing is my opponent's proclamation in this article that he's accomplished in challenging the misconduct or illegal actions by law enforcement in court. I'm sure my law enforcement officers are disappointed to hear of this boast. It's difficult for me to understand how a marijuana defense lawyer and a proud member of NORML, whose avowed purpose is to legalize marijuana use, can in good conscience execute the office of the duties of county attorney and prosecute violations for our marijuana laws. Interestingly, I've not seen my opponent at a commissioner's court meeting or a county court hearing since I took office. About the civil matters I'm handling, I've addressed a number of county civil matters left on the back burner for a very long time. I changed the use of deed forms that better protects the county from future lawsuits. Such revisions include changing from the use of general warranty deed to that of a special warranty deed with limited express and implied warranty, sometimes associated with real estate transaction. About office administrations, which few people understand the county attorney has, I must develop an annual budget. I served as a manager of 3 different law firms in my career. One firm I managed had offices in 5 counties with some 60 attorneys and support staff, and I continued my full-time trial practice. One budget item is group insurance for the county attorney. I opted out of such coverage, paying for my own, saving the county over $18,000 annually. Over the next several years, I will save the county over $70,000. My opponent and I are both licensed attorneys, running to represent you as county attorney. He claims he's the most qualified for the office. And when we were seeking the information about it, we were all handed what is entitled Political Advertising by Ms. Pitcox. All campaign signs and ads must contain a political advertising disclosure found in the Texas Elections Code. This is fundamental election law. A political advertising disclosure must contain the words political advertising and must contain the name of the person who paid for it. My opponent's yard signs, electronic billboard, and political banner did not initially include such required disclosure. His electronic billboard did not have the required disclosure for nearly 2 weeks. I chose not to complain to the Texas Ethics Commission about that error, although it could have exposed him up to civil penalties of $4,000. Although mainly unreadable, he tried to correct those errors with paste-on disclosures or a handwritten disclosure in ink. But errors they were. With strained revenues, the county simply cannot afford this lack of attention to detail or inexperience. It's like letting a student change his answer on a test a week after the test has been taken. The problem is you cannot change an error after the trial is over. A trial moves like a machine gun. An error by the prosecutor at trial usually means the criminal walks free. A defendant who beats a crime at the courthouse walks out thinking he can get away with it again, especially if it's a DWI or illegal drug matter. I do not want you, my wife, or me to stand by the casket of a child or grandchild killed by a drunk driver or illegal drug user who was let go due to a lawyer's mistake. Selecting your county attorney is a very serious business with potentially deadly consequences for careless errors. You may ask what my platform is. It's pretty simple. Safety and security for our families. Back the blue. No sanctuary cities. No autonomous or no police zones. No open borders, and I will cooperate with the Border Patrol to stop illegal crossing of our border. Strict enforcement of our drug laws. I would like to develop a nonprofit foundation, have concerned citizens support law enforcement and first responders when local financing and revenue funds are not available. After my love of God, my wife, my family, and friends, I truly love the law. Any of you who know me know I mean it. I show up for work on time and I get the job done. Please seriously consider my decades of legal experience, training, attention to detail, and insight in this office. The county my wife and I love and have loved for decades and supported financially through tax dollars and contributions. I hope you will accept my significant legal experience gained over time and vote for me in this election to continue the job I've sworn to do. As a bonus, if you elect me, you also get my wife, Suzanne, who was born right here in Brady. Like Peter was to Jesus, she is my rock. She is our family's foundation of faith, happiness, goodness, and knowledge. She loves this county, which love was instilled in her by her great-grandparents who moved here in 1898, by her grandparents and her parents, and that she now has instilled in me. She won't let me let you down. God bless.
This is sort of a general question for both of you, and we'll start again with Greg to answer this one. Basically, what is your number one priority if you're elected?
My number one priority if I'm elected is to serve the county to the best of my ability. And I'm going to do that every day. I'm going to touch on that, my criminal defense experience. When you're admitted to become a licensed attorney, you have to take an oath to follow the Constitution. And that means advocating for your clients to the best of your ability. My first 2 years as an attorney, I wasn't in the courtroom. I did, as I mentioned earlier, I did bankruptcy for a little bit. I did a lot of family law. I wasn't in the courtroom that much. But I knew that if I went to law school and I actually became educated, I wanted to be in the courtroom every day, kind of like what we saw on TV. I didn't have a lot of connections. My parents, again, they didn't come from a family of lawyers or anything like that. And I took a criminal defense job. And as that job, you bet, I followed the Constitution. I did the best I could for my clients every single time, because that's my oath that I took. And I'm going to continue to do that. To use a football analogy, it's like knowing the other playbook on the other side. Super Bowl was yesterday. That's what it's like. You have to know the case law. Most criminal cases plea out. That's just the truth. And I'd welcome a debate on the criminal code or Texas penal code anytime. Absolutely. Most cases plea out. So what that means is winning cases on the front end. What does that mean? Fighting the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment issues. Any defense attorney worth their salt wins a case on the front end. That means probable cause on stop, search, arrest, seizure. That's what defense attorneys go to. Folks, I know the case law, I think, as best as anybody in the state. I'm up there with them because that's all I've done the last 3 years. And I give you my word as a Brady native, I'm going to, of course, follow the Constitution and my oath, this time not for criminal defendants, but for the county, for the residents of our beautiful community. I'm going to say something about my old boss. I really am. Because he gave me a job when I didn't have a job. Hate is a strong word. I did not agree with his marketing campaign. But he learned a long time ago, we can get, and come find me afterwards, I can talk more about this in depth. He learned a long time ago that a lot of stops where he could have the most business is actually up there in the northern panhandle, okay? Because what happens in shores, they come down from Colorado with concentrates and extracts and things of that nature. And he learned a long time ago, a lot of people weren't taking those cases, and he learned a long time ago if he could market there, he could generate a lot of business. And that's how he was able to hire me. He had marijuana leaves. He was a member of NORML, and I didn't agree with that because I don't believe in the legalization of marijuana. But I did the best I could for my clients. And after I told him I was going to move to Brady, he offered me not one but 2 raises because I'd done a good job for him. And I said, no, it's time to move back to my home and raise my son. And you know what he did? He kept me on the payroll for 3 months while I got settled down here. While I was living in those apartments across from McDonald's, while I was trying to close on a home, while I was trying to close on a business downtown. I've got an active business right now where, guess what? I still defend criminal clients. I'm in part of the 452nd District. Andy knows that. He sees me there. I'm in Rock Springs, I'm in Junction, I'm in Mason, I'm in Ard, doing what? Filling my constitutional duty that I took an oath for. And I'm going to do it when elected for the resident of our beautiful county. I promise you, and I give you my word. But I can't badmouth my boss. I wasn't raised like that. People that were raised right here in McCulloch County know that's not how we're raised. He gave me money when I was just working via Zoom and remotely. He didn't have to do that. And so I'm not going to sit here and badmouth him. As far as not being licensed in federal court in the Western District, I will be when I'm elected. It's smoke and mirrors, folks. It's filling out a form and then having somebody that's also admitted go and swear you in. That's what it's like to be in the federal court system. I'm going to serve, to answer the question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to serve the residents in my county every single day because, as I said earlier, y'all have helped me. Y'all have helped me as I grew up in my upbringing, my church, my spiritual upbringing, and becoming educated. And I'm going to give back to make a better county for my son and my family. And here's why it matters that I'm from here, okay? Have you ever worked at a place where you hated? I have. It's absolutely miserable. I'm not going to hate here. Right now, the spotlight is on the county attorney position. There's signs everywhere. Yes, trust me, it annoys me too. There's signs. We're talking about it. Sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's overwhelming. It's politics, okay? But when the spotlight's off and it's the dog days of Hummer and it's that Texas heat down here in West Central Texas, I know where I'm going to be. Right here in my office, working every day, committed to providing for my family and my toddler. The last note I want to touch on, see, there was a lot there. I'm trying to go through respond to every single one. But in general, the signs, it was the signs. It was a mistake. This is the first time I'm doing this, y'all. I've never been in politics before. It's right. I made a mistake. When it was pointed out to me, I can tell you who pointed it out to me if you want to come find me. Immediately, my wife and I went into mode of trying to get it fixed. I'm not a perfect person. There's nobody in here that is a perfect person. I'm not a perfect attorney. But I want you to be with me because this is a 4-year job. What's worse is if we're in this exact same position in 4 years. What if in 4 years, this position is open again? I'm ready right now. I'm ready to serve our community right now. That's why it matters that I'm here. That's why it matters why I was born and raised here. I'm here to help, and I hope that gives some clarity to some of those issues. Thank you.
Mr. James, the same question. What is your number one priority if elected?
Clearly, from the time I've been in the office, the number one priority is getting the backlog of criminal cases taken care of. Judge Truill and I have diligently tried to pull as many cases as we can forward and heard. We usually set 25 at a time, and we see what happens. COVID hit the jail. We're now in the middle of an election. You know, it's very interesting how the judge has to be there, I have to be there, Christine has to be there. She can't be there right now. She's got to cover the election. So we're shut down during the election. So we have to manage all of this. But the most important thing is for me to get the backlog of criminal cases moving down the line. We're going to start setting trials, as some of you probably know. The Texas Supreme Court has had us under emergency orders for almost 2 years now. I haven't tried a civil jury trial in almost a year and a half, and because the Supreme Court has ordered us not to do that, not to expose everybody to COVID. So we go by Zoom, which is probably one of the worst ways to try a case. Just, you don't have the contact with people as we do right now. It's just, it's not me. I have to have eyes that I see. I have to see your body language. I have to see what's happening. We don't have that right now. Hopefully we'll move off of that in the near future. But still, number one priority for me is the criminals and getting them off the street, moving them down the line, and keeping this county safe. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of it.
During your comments, Mr. James, you specified a number of issues that you felt were really important to you, especially drugs and those sorts of things that you identified as problems from your standpoint. From your standpoint, what do you see as the biggest problems McCulloch County faces? And how would you, as a county attorney, try to fix them?
By far, the number one question when it comes to the crime in McCulloch County I get is drugs, right? We see it, it happens, and the truth is that a lot of times they're not always McCulloch natives. We've got 5 major highways: San Antonio, Abilene, San Angelo, Austin. So a lot of times they're not always they're not always local residents, but it's still a problem, and it's a problem we have to deal with. The biggest concern that I see with prosecutors in general is that they just take one certain approach and they stick with it no matter what. Well, who knows what recidivism means? Recidivism rate. Okay, that means when people are rearrested or go back to jail after it's nearly close to 70%. Okay, and we've got to fix that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this gets into the legal theories, but there are different ways to do it, right? I see prosecutors that are just harsh and they want jail time every time. Let me tell you, folks, an experienced defendant, I don't want to say hardened criminal, but sometimes a hardened criminal, they'll take jail every time. They want jail every time. They can do that on their head. That's nothing to them. And so I think the best way to do is combine different measures, rehabilitative measures and punishment phases, okay? So punishment phases is jail, that's probation, straight probation with conviction that can cause a loss of license for 6 months, sometimes up to a year. That's fines, all within the penal code. And also rehabilitative measures. AA works. I have seen it done over and over. Alcoholics Anonymous, people have beaten alcohol addiction with AA. It's Christian based. People kind of think, well, it's cheesy, it's 12-step. I've seen it work. And if we can combine both a punishment where they can go to jail, but maybe the amount of time in jail was negotiated if they go to AA, or while on probation, we make them do a victim impact panel where they can see the results of their delinquent behavior. That's a win-win. Because what's our goal? Our goal is to lower that recidivism rate for the people and kids of our community. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine both. It's a fantastic question. And people have different theories, but I'm going to combine both punishment, things won't go unpunished, and rehabilitate, combine them to make sure we figure out what works in our county to lower our arrest rate. Thank you.
Mr. James, you want to add anything to what you said earlier?
I'm glad to. There's a wide range of things that you can do as a prosecutor. The recidivism rate is very high in this county. We have repeat offenders. They seem sometimes not to get the message. Amazingly, many of them, in addition to having the misdemeanor charge that I'm dealing with, will have felony charges. Let me tell you what I think I bring to this office that I gained with experience managing law firms. It's money. You've got to manage money. We had a defendant come in not too long ago who was represented by an attorney, a fellow over in San Angelo, and he said, "I'm going to plead guilty and I want 30 days in jail." And I thought, well, that's very interesting, and it just happens that he has 2 felonies pending over in San Angelo. So I asked the attorney, what's the deal with this? And he said, well, he just wants to serve his time here so he can go back to San Angelo and deal with the felonies. Well, that cost our county $50 a day to house this fellow from San Angelo. That's $1,500 that we have to come up with to house this man. So I went back to this attorney and I said, look, I'm not really interested in doing that, but I'll give him $1,000 fine and he can plead guilty to that and he can go back to San Angelo. He said, well, he didn't have the money. And I said, well, how much does he have? And he looked at me and he said, well, Bruce, how much do you want? And I said, all I can get. So we settled on $500 and we got that fine, and he didn't have to spend 30 days in our jail costing us $1,500 out of our pocket. So I work to save this county money in looking at this from not only a lawyer's perspective and a prosecutor's perspective, but also from a businessman's perspective, because I've got to help this county, our county judge and our commissioners manage our budget. And it is tough right now. If you don't believe me, ask our county officials. So that's part of the job that I'm trying to do as your county attorney. And again, what you get from me is maturity and experience along lots of different areas, not just in the courtroom, but from managing businesses. Those of you who may not know that several of us here tried to save the railroad and bought into the heart of the Texas Railroad and kept that, and I managed it, and I had to deal with the Federal Railroad Administration. Nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. They want to help you build and run the railroad. So, you know, I'm a businessman too, and we have to realize that this county, although a government, has got to have money to operate. And if you don't have enough money to operate, you're going to be in trouble. We're not allowed the luxury of printing money like our federal government.
Our next question deals with basically the question of how aggressive would you be with misdemeanor Class A family violence against family members? Questions? Greg?
Another fantastic question. I've got tons of experiences in these matters. First, I'm going to be here and accessible. When someone comes in, when someone comes in that needs a protective order, I'm going to be in my office, accessible, ready to get it done when I'm elected. I'm not going to be anywhere else, because if you don't get those in front of the county judge for signature soon, you might not get it. People come in from the Haven looking for them. We need to be there. I'm going to be there for the residents of our county. There's common misconceptions when it comes to family violence assault cases that if the victim signs an affidavit of non-prosecution, that the case goes away. And I always tell people that's one piece of evidence. There are other pieces of evidence. How aggressive I'm going to be, it's a general question, but it depends on the case that I'm looking at, right? So if a victim has a black eye, if we've got a witness state, we have a police report, I don't care if she signs an affidavit of non-prosecution. Why? Because my case is going to hold up in front of a jury. We have the evidence in front of us. And I'm going to be as aggressive as I can when the case is there. I'm going to be available when our women and men coming from the Haven or come from a protective order. I'm going to be there and accessible for our residents. Thank you so much.
And same question. How aggressive would you be with misdemeanor Class A family violence against a family member?
Those of you who know me know I have a fascination for books, and especially Lonesome Dove. I'll take a quote from Captain Woodrow Call: "I will not tolerate it."
Another question, should asset forfeiture be allowed without a conviction?
Everybody go get popcorn, go get a Coke. We're going to get in deeper. This is a very, Lynn, should asset forfeitures be allowed without a conviction? Sorry. Okay, all right. Okay, so first, that's not necessarily always under the county attorney purview. The DA is going to handle most cash asset forfeitures. I've done several asset forfeiture cases before. I'll give you, does everybody know what an asset forfeiture is? Everybody, show of hands. Okay, so a lot of people know what an asset forfeiture is. I'll give you a quick hypothetical, okay? Somebody's driving down a highway, and they've got, a lot of times, guns, drugs, let's say $80,000 cash, and they get pulled over, and through probable cause, the law enforcement officer finds $80,000. First, let me make this blanket clear so I don't forget. I'm not for the complete rollback of asset forfeitures. There's some reforms, and I'll get into it. It's an extremely complicated matter. So in that hypothetical, we're there, and because an officer thinks through probable cause that there might be some sort of a crime that's being committed with that, they can seize that. They'll seize that $80,000. So once that happens, it shifts from a criminal case to a civil matter. Is everybody with me? Is everybody with me here? So we've got a criminal case pending on the drugs and on a money laundering maybe, and on an unlawful carrying of a weapon. And then we've got $80,000 seized on an asset forfeiture case. So someone would come into my office and say, this is what happened. We've got drugs. I've got, guns. I've got money. They give me for money launder. And by the way, they stole $80,000. I want my money. And I'll say, well, you can handle the criminal side. We can handle the civil side. That's 30% of what you get back. That's two separate contracts right there. And that's how you have to represent the case. So once that happens, the Code of Civil Procedure comes into play. Once the Code of Civil Procedure comes into play, you have to file an answer. Some of y'all know this within 20 days. And here's why asset forfeiture can work. Because a lot of times, here's how the case goes. They'll come into my office. They'll say, I want my money. Where's my $80,000? And I'll say, you can get it. Because there's a common misconception. It goes to the criminal court system. The civil court system. They can get it back, but they have to show proof. The rules of discovery apply. And so I'll say, here's what's going to happen. The state's going to ask for bank statements. They're going to ask for tax returns. They're going to ask for receipts. You got any of that? No. Okay. Well, what did you do for a living? I mowed yards. Or I was a taxi cab driver. Okay, well, what are you doing with $80,000? I'm going to blow it in Vegas. Well, let's take our lawyer hat off and just use common sense. Do we really believe that $80,000 he has is from a taxi business he's got no receipts for, no tax statements, no bank statements, and he got it as a tax charge? Probably not, right? Common sense, probably not. And so that's why I think asset forfeitures can be a good thing. That's drug money. That's money laundered money. They're trying to wash it. That money gets into, the drug use of hands, which perpetuates crime, especially it can trickle all the way down to our children. So that's why asset forfeiture can be a good thing. Now, can there be some reforms? The worst thing I see with asset forfeiture, and for those that are interested, is when they'll take like $1,200 with like a Toyota Tundra, and they've seized the car and they've seized the amount of money. And in those situations, there's abuse that's involved. I wouldn't partake in any abuse of it, because a lot of times what happens is they'll tell somebody, spend a day in jail and, we'll give you just a fine or just probation and we'll take your $1,200. That's not the way I'm going to play it. If the evidence is there that it was used for nefarious purchases, then we're going to seize that money, because that's drug money. That's money laundered money. If it's not, we're going to give it back. I'm going to follow the Constitution on those matters. Fantastic question. Someone's in deep to the criminal code. So kudos.
I think I visited, a little while with the person that asked this question before the meeting started. So far, we're not seeing that kind of activity. We're not having that kind of seizures in this county. It happens. I certainly would not want a seizure to occur before there was some probable cause to make that seizure. Most of those will not be in our court. It will be $80,000 is way beyond the jurisdiction of a county court. So we really don't experience that. And it would not fall in the Code of Civil Procedure. I've never heard of that. It's the rules of civil procedure that we would be looking at. And it would be something that the district, probably the state, either the AG's office, I don't think our district attorney would even handle that. It's more of a civil matter that the state handles to try to build their resources with, and it goes for a good thing. I'm not for eliminating asset forfeitures. I am for strict construction of the constitutional way to grab that money if you can do it, and use it for our law enforcement to continue enforcing our laws. I am a strict constitutional instructionist. Call me Antonin Scalia if you want, but that's how I view it. So we just don't have them here right now. We can, and we could see it, but we haven't seen it, at least not in my tenure.
I guess the last question is for Greg. It says, Mr. James' website shows a rating of AV preeminent by Martindale Hubbard. Do you have a rating, and what is it?
I've got a Google rating, and so far 5 stars, 3 reviews. No, you get asked when you work in the cities, and I've worked in Fort Worth again the last 4 or 5 years to take part of these publications, and I could have been named one of Fort Worth's best attorneys in 2020 and 2021. All I had to do was get out my wallet and swipe my credit card. That's how a lot of them go. The Martindale Hubble, I'm not 100% sure of, but a lot of them, you pay for it and they put you on there. I don't have that one to answer the question. As far as any ratings, again, I have 3 ratings of 5-star reviews for my private practice here downtown. Thank you.
That is going to conclude the portion of our forum on with the 2 candidates for county attorney. And turn next to county commissioner. And before I do that, I'll pass along to you that the Brady High School varsity boys basketball team tonight was defeated by Wall by a score of 65-38. That we move on. The basketball season is now behind us. Next up, we'll look at county commissioners. And we have county commissioners. I'm not sure if Tom Hale is here or not. Right there. Okay, good. And glad to have you here. And so we have 4 candidates for county commissioner, and we will go through those by order of where they are on the ballot. And I've forgotten who was first. Who's first on the ballot? Okay. Michael Jordan. That's right. You're not that guy. You're not that guy.
How are y'all doing? I'm Michael Jordan. I was born and raised in McCulloch County. Went to high school in Brady, graduated in 1981. I've been in business for myself for over 30 years. I've been manager of retail stores. My wife and me owned Brady Floral. So I know how to budget. We know how to run business. I've been with the volunteer fire department in Rochelle. I've been chief for 15 years. I'm now assistant chief going on 3 years. I've been with 4-H Rifle. Been an instructor for over 12 years. Been manager of the club for 6 years. Been with the NRA. I'm been president of the local chapter of the Friends of NRA, sat on grant committees. I know how to run equipment. I'm a building contractor, and that's just a background of what I've done. The reason I want to run for commissioner is I think that we need representation in Precinct 4, and I want to be representing the people. And that's all I've got.
Next up is, who's next on the ballot? Don Bratton.
I'm Don Bratton. A lot of y'all know me. I was raised here, McCulloch County grown, homegrown. Grew up on a ranch outside of Brady. Went to my school at Rochelle the first 4 years, and then transferred into Brady and graduated high school there. My parents, David and Weta. My siblings were Lewis, Bill, and Mitzi. My wife is Kitty. I have 5 children. The oldest, Amanda, she's a graduate of Texas Tech. She got her master's degree there, and she's a CPA there. Her and her family reside there in Lubbock. Next up is Travis. He's employed by the Lubbock Police Department. He holds the rank of sergeant. He and his family reside in Lubbock as well. Next up is Brayla. She's an assistant dean at a college in Las Vegas, Nevada, medical college. And she just entered a doctorate program. And her and her family reside there in Las Vegas or on the outskirts. Next up is Breslin. Her and her family reside here in McCulloch County, here in Brady, and she's employed with Frontier Healthcare. Lastly is Bronco. He's currently employed in the sand industry in Kermit, and he's recently married. Good luck to him. Seriously, with the work ethics that I instilled in them, I'm going to display the same thing if I'm elected. I can recall all these kids. One year, I had a preschooler. This is all in the same year now. A preschooler, one in elementary, junior high school, and one in college. So I was spread out. But seriously, I was fortunate. I was given good work ethics by my parents. I, in turn, told my kids, you reap what you sow. You can go as high as you want and do the best you can, or you can just middle ground it. It's your call. But they've done well. And so back when I was in the drench pen with them, drenching goats or sheep or in the working, branding cattle or whatever we were doing, feeding cattle, whatever we were doing, I could reflect on how I'd done it 30 years prior. The work ethics were all there, and I've got them. I've got the genetics too, because my kids, these master degrees and possible doctorate, they don't grow on trees. So the job duties that I would display if elected, I would meet with the employees on a daily basis. Hey, we're going to do this. Hey, we've got inclement weather. Okay, we're not grading roads today. We're going to do maintenance on our vehicles, or we're going to go cut tree limbs that are getting out in the roadway. We're going to do something in a pro-social, proactive manner. And at the end of the day, we're going to log off. Hey, we graded Road 472. We graded 4 miles of that, and we went over here and did this. We had a horn came in, and we had to put in over on 418 or whatever it is. But there will be a check and balance at the end of the day. I can review that. Well, that looks good. There's gonna be some accountability going on. That's meeting daily. Now we get into the unforeseen. We have inclement weather, real bad, devastating, horrendous rains that come through and tear up our roads, undermine our bridges. There's FEMA money involved in that. If you don't act in a timely manner, that FEMA money goes away. And if it doesn't go away and you get it in late, you might still be honored, you might still get it, but you can rest assured there's probably going to be a penalty imposed. So when it's something as serious as that, I, for one, am going to be on top of that. There won't be any willy-nilly, just do it as you find time. It's going to be something that's time sensitive. And then the last part is setting the budget. That to me is very, very critical, the most important part of the entire job. If it's done correctly, and we've all seen school boards or other entities, they don't take the time or initiative. They want to just go through and rubber stamp, check, 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 check. Oh, we've been filling this. Let's go off on, let's do that some more. That's not the attitude I'm going to go by it with a fine-tooth comb. Maybe a program that worked 18 years ago or 30 years ago might have been absolutely, you bet, it was sound. It had merit. But we've all got the tax bills lately in the library and the jail. It's time to cut. If there's any fat left, it's time to slice and dice. We need to pare it down to something we can live with. Yes, these programs might have been very beneficial 18 years ago or whenever. At the time, we were helping someone else. Now it's time maybe to help ourselves. This harkens to mind, what I'm getting ready to say here is correlates a conversation that I had with my mother several years ago. We were sitting around the table, it was a light conversation. And we were talking about, just random things, nothing of a serious nature. And she said, Don, I saw Joaquin yesterday in the store. You remember Joaquin, don't you? Well, Joaquin was a former classmate. I said, yes, Mother, I remember Joaquin. How's Joaquin doing? She said, Don, you'll realize that some people grow up and some grow taller. Now, this was her way of saying, and not in a disparative way, that she was disappointed in Joaquin. And I realize that. I went to school with Joaquin. He had a lot of potential to him. A lot going on in Joaquin's life. He could have gone places. And I saw disappointment in his teachers. I saw disappointment in his parents. I saw disappointment in his wife. It soon became his ex-wife. I saw disappointment in his kids. He left a wake of disappointment. And it was sad to see. I'm compelled right now to run as county commissioner because I am disappointed in the way things have progressed the last few years. But I don't hold that title exclusively, because I'm sure that Mr. Hale and Mr. Jordan share my sentiments as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running. Precinct 4 deserves better, and I intend to. I took the initiative to come forth and run for that reason. It's out of disappointment. It's encouraging to see the turnout here tonight. I wish this thing was packed even fuller, but it shows me that, yes, we could have all been at home watching the Winter Olympics. Could have been watching No Country for Old Men. But we've got our priorities straight. We're here, we're trying to educate ourselves on the future legislative, county offices. We're trying to find out for me, where my opponents stand, but for y'all, who y'all want to vote for. And I would appreciate, if you live in Precinct 4, that you'd vote for me. Thank you very much.
Our third candidate, Tom Hale.
First off, I want to apologize. I'm not a public speaker, and I'm going to stumble through this, but we'll get there. I lived in Brady till I was in first grade, second grade, moved off. Come back when I was 19 years old. I've been living here ever since. I'm 52 years old. I worked for the city of Brady's Police Department for 3 years, worked for the Sheriff's Department 15 years as a reserve. I've been managing ranches for the last 25 years. I know everybody knows my wife, and that's a hell. I have 4 daughters. They grew up and graduated high school here in town. They're all successful young ladies. And that's really about all I've got to say.
And the fourth candidate, Rick Kent.
Good evening. Glad to see all of y'all here tonight. If you don't know me, I'm Rick Kemp. I've been your county commissioner for 3 years for Precinct 4. We've made a lot of headway out there. When I took over, our roads were totally destroyed. They were not crowned. I didn't do that. There's 2 guys that work out there in that county every day. That's Keith Stewart and Kenny Caraway. They do the roads. And they tell me point blank, you do the paperwork, you take the butt chewings, we'll do the work. And I'll tell you what, it works. Those 2 guys take care of business. I don't have to be out there watching them every minute. As far as knowing what they do every day, when they come in at the end of the day, there's a log made out. We had this piece of equipment on this road. We did this much work. I don't have to follow them around and check if they did that work because they do it. Not only do I have 2, or I don't have, but not only are there 2 guys that work out there because they are actually residents of Precinct 4, they're voters and they're taxpayers. They're my boss. Everyone in Precinct 4 is my boss. They're the taxpayers. They pay my salary. They call me and tell me what needs to be done. I can't drive every road every day. There's 148 miles in that precinct. But I have some people in that county, in that precinct, and in the county too. There's people that in other precincts drive the roads and call me and say, Rick, we've got a problem over here. We'll take care of it. I've told everybody, if you see a problem, you call me. If we have the money, the material, and the equipment to fix it, we'll fix it. If we don't have it, then we'll try and get it. We talk about a budget. We have not been over budget in 3 years. What little budget we have. When I took this office, there was $91,000 taken out of my budget for a previous job before I took office. My budget hadn't got a whole lot better since then. But I did talk to Zane today, had a long talk with him, and we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. We're coming out of losing the sand plants. We're going to start getting more money from our wind chargers, the pipelines that are going through, which those pipelines, both of them came through Precinct 3 and Precinct 4. We're going to get more money from them. That'll help us do a better job. On FEMA, you take care of a road on FEMA, they tell you you have X amount of material to put on that road, you have X number of dollars that you cannot go over. You have to correlate those, get your material underneath budget and the work that will reimburse you for your man hours, your equipment that you use, and it kind of offsets what our expenses are. But if we didn't have FEMA, we wouldn't have the roads that we've got out there now. I don't like FEMA. I don't like working with the government. I'm of the opinion when the government puts their finger in your business and they take care of your business. I'm very conservative. I don't spend a dime if I don't have it. I run Precinct 4 the same way I run my personal life. If I don't have money in my bank account, I'm not writing a check. Right now, we're waiting on FEMA to reimburse us for the work we've done, and then we can start back up again. But that's what we do. And I've been told time and time again that a commissioner does more than roads. We have a budget to take care of. We have people, when we lose someone, like our county attorney leaves, we have to appoint someone. When our judge passed away, we had to appoint someone. I'll tell you what, people, it's not hard. I mean, it's not easy to replace someone that you really care for. And when Bill Spillard passed away, it broke my heart. But I'll tell you what, we did a good job. We got Frank Truell in there. He's doing a great job. We have a good commissioner's court. Jason Barron, Randy Deans, Carol Anderson, and myself, and the judge. We work together. We have yet to have a knockdown, drag-out fight. We've discussed things. We don't get heated, and we work it out. Because we have one goal, and that is to take care of McCulloch County and the people in this county. That's our sole job. Y'all are our boss. And I would love to see that courtroom full every time we have court of people in there talking to us, telling us what the issues are so we can try and fix them. If we don't know what's going on, we can't fix it. I'm glad to see this many people here. We should have had 10 times this year. Precinct 4 has 1,136 voters on the book. 3 years ago, guess how many people voted? 241. You're letting 241 people dictate to everybody in that precinct who's going to be in charge. We got an election coming up March 1st. I would love for you to vote for me because I like what I'm doing. I love the people that I work for. I love the people I work with. But please vote. That's the only say you have in anything is to air your opinion through a vote. So please do it. I haven't done the best job. I think Greg said it pretty good. I'm not perfect. Never have been. There's only been one perfect man walking on this earth, and they killed him. I'll tell you what, I'll work for you every day like I have in the last 3 years. And we're making a difference. And I think people see the difference. I got a call last week. I'll share this with you. And the judge kind of told me I need to say something about it. Another commissioner called me and asked me to be on the resolution committee at the 93rd annual West Texas Conference in Arlington. When he told me that, I went, what is it? What are you trying to rope me into? Come to find out, it is the resolution committee is the committee that goes over all the resolutions sit in statewide for that conference. We go over those, we put which ones go forward to a vote. Once those are voted in, it doesn't just pertain to McCulloch County, Mason County, Concho County. 254 counties will go by what's voted in. I consider that a big honor, and it's very humbling that somebody would consider me for that. That's all I have to say right now. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate you.
Well, contrary to my predictions to several people who were here, there were no questions for county commissioners about roads. Nobody's saying, when are you going to grade my road? Normally there are, but not this time. We do have a question that generally the gist of it is that the person is asking about non-mandated handouts paid out of local tax revenues. The person uses the example of Central Texas Opportunities and asking for your opinion and a view on, basically as the questioner asks, gifting local tax dollars to federally funded programs such as Central Texas Opportunities. And in turn, you're taxing people here who are financially stressed. And so I will ask you again, if each one of you, you can answer the question or pass on it if you want. First of all, Mr. Stewart, you want to, not Stewart, Jordan, you'll pass. Okay, Don?
Lynn, if I understand the question correctly, non-mandated?
Non-mandated handouts.
Okay. Well, to me, and I don't mean to be facetious or take this lightly, but if it's non-mandated, if we don't have to push money into the pot, I just assume not. We're not just Precinct 4, the entire county as a whole. We're under tight finances right now, and so as far as pushing money into a jackpot, it's not going to pay off. You might have the winning hand, but it's not going to pay off. I just soon pass on that. But that's my view.
Okay. Mr. Hale?
I don't understand the question either. What do you have?
Well, it was asking basically about funding federally funded programs or helping support federally funded programs with taxpayer dollars from the county.
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, that's a no. I don't agree with that. And Mr. Kip.
Okay, your non-funded mandates seem to really come down here lately. It goes into our jail system. They want us to pay for the indigent. They want us to pay for this. They want us to pay for that. They're putting all these mandates on us, but they're not giving us any state or federal funding to pay for them. So it falls back on you, the taxpayers. If I have the vote to turn down an unfunded mandate, I will vote to turn it down. We do not need any more taxes on us. We've got enough. I'm a taxpayer like you are. I don't want to pay any more taxes. I'd rather put it in my pocket. But anyway, no more unfunded mandates for me.
We've got a couple of more questions. Basically, these are questions about what's going on in the county at the current time. And so, Mr. Kemp, you would seem to be the logical person to ask, since you are the incumbent. Why won't Rochelle ISD buses go down the country roads? They are stopping in the highway to pick up kids. Have any information, opinion on that?
I have not heard anything on that.
Haven't heard anything, okay. And the other one, the final one is, why didn't the county help with the Gate 5 fire? Gate 5. Why didn't the county help with the Gate 5 fire? Okay. Just, I don't either.
That would have been the Jones Cattle Company. That's when they had their
The rise, fire.
problem in Heart of Texas Park when it burned. It was a
Oh, okay, the big fire
Texas.
up north, on the northern part of the county?
Yeah,
Bless you.
the largest fire in the state.
Okay, the big fire.
At that time.
All right. Okay, so the assumption of the person asking the question is the county didn't help. Is that accurate? Anybody know? Okay.
They helped to a certain point, but, as far as using county equipment out there, it was really rugged area.
Okay, but we don't know if they used, to what extent they used county equipment or whatever. Okay. Okay. Well, I think we're gonna,
Jim Spiller went out there and talked to
okay.
anything we talked.
All right. Well, we're going to conclude. That's going to wrap us up. We don't have any more questions. We appreciate everybody being here tonight for this candidate forum for 2020. The election day is March 1st. Early voting began today, and we'll conclude on Friday of next week. And again, we have a good crowd here tonight. We really appreciate it. Appreciate all the candidates are here. And as Mr. Kemp exhorted you, go and vote. Don't forget. Thanks a lot. I'm Lynn Ferris for KNEL. Good night.